Welcome to Study Medicine. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the latest information that's been added to the free resources section of Study Medicine, which is the 10-step medical school application guide. Of course, Study Medicine provides information about 59 Australian university degrees that lead to becoming a doctor. This information is provided for all universities in Australia with a medical program, and there's 20 medical programs with 22 Australian universities, and this information in Study Medicine is provided both at a summary level for each one of those medical programs or at a university detail level. If you're interested in accessing Study Medicine information about all 59 Australian university medical degrees, feel free to head into the pricing section to find out how you can subscribe to Study Medicine to receive this information. So let's head into the free resources section and walk through the 10-step medical school application guide. So here we are in the resources section, and I'm going to scroll down to show you the 2-page guide. So the 2-page guide has been constructed to go through 10 steps in how you apply for medicine in Australia. So first of all, the steps relate to identifying the type of medical program, deciding on the medical degrees that you're going to apply for, and also the non-medicine degrees as your fallback Plan B option. You need to identify the organisation you need to apply either through or to. You need to identify the specific application arrangements that apply to you personally. You need to understand the assessments that each university will go through for their specific medical degree to select students. Understand the deadlines, and there's a lot of them, that relate to applications and also to documentation and assessments. You obviously have to put together the application and associated paperwork, documentation paperwork, and submit that well ahead of the closing time. You need to understand the broader selection process and the time frame around that, and finally you need to verify your contact information. So let's step through this in more detail and understand how medical degrees are applied for in Australia. It may seem self-evident, but there are two types of medical programs in Australia. There's an undergraduate medical degree and a postgraduate medical degree, with the undergraduate medical degree being a bachelor degree that you do straight after high school. For a postgraduate medical degree, you need to have done a previous degree, bachelor's degree and possibly other degrees, in order to apply for postgraduate medicine. So just because a university has a medical degree does not necessarily mean that you can apply for it, because you need to understand what type of degree it is. Decide the medical degrees you're going to apply for, and obviously there's a number of things to take into consideration. You can apply for any number of medical programs in your local state or interstate, provided you meet the application requirements. Application requirements are always set for academic grades, but the medical program may also have certain requirements regarding subject prerequisites. If it's a postgraduate degree, there may also be requirements for certain types of previous degrees. International students always have to meet certain English language skills, and there's additional testing that universities may require students to go through, such as UCAT, GAMSAT, MCAT, and whatever. Because medicine is highly competitive, it's really important to also consider your other options if you're not successful in your application for medicine. These other options may include, for example, starting another university degree, and that needs to be thought through, because if you're still wanting to apply for an undergraduate degree program in medicine, some universities require students to not have undertaken any other university study. Equally, if you're thinking of your Plan B as being going through a bachelor's degree through to a postgraduate degree in medicine, some postgraduate degrees require specific bachelor degrees, and for those bachelor degrees to also, in some cases, to have been completed at a certain university. So understand the pathway through to postgraduate medicine as your Plan B option. And it's also worth thinking through if your Plan B relates to a lateral entry, that is starting in another program and then moving over to medicine, that may not necessarily be as straightforward as it may seem. So think through your Plan B options as they relate to how you might be positioned to apply for medicine later. Understand that the organisation you need to apply either through or to. Undergraduate medical degree programs, bachelor degrees, may require students to apply through a state agency in the same state where the university is located, or you may have to apply directly to the university, or you may have to apply through both. Equally, postgraduate degrees in medicine may require you to apply through the university, or you may be required to apply for the central agency known as GEMSAS, or you might be able to apply or be required to apply through both. It depends on the university and the medical program, so understand that process. A further consideration is making sure you understand the specific application arrangements as they apply to you. You will be classified as either a domestic or an international, possibly a rural, Indigenous, or maybe even a special access student. And each one of those categorisations may have specific and different paths for applications, and it's important therefore for you to understand those again in the application for that medical program degree and how it applies to you. Understand the assessments that the university will go through to select students. As I said before, those assessments will definitely include an academic assessment. There may also be further psychological testing, UCAT, GAMSAT and whatever, any prerequisite subjects, further assessments such as interviews, and what's required in terms of additional documentation that you need to provide, such as the written documents, forms, any references, if you have to submit a portfolio. Understand that deadlines relate to not only the application but also the assessments and the associated paperwork. There are always application deadlines, but the associated paperwork may well have separate and different deadlines that apply to it. For example, the University of Sydney, applicants need to have their qualifications assessed in terms of GPA, and UAC, that does that assessment, has its own associated deadlines with that GPA assessment itself. So understand whether there are additional deadlines that apply to the collation of the documentation. Also understand that degrees may have early closing dates. So the central agencies, state agencies for example, will have standard closing dates for applications, but your degree may have an early closing date. So double check whether that's the case or not. And of course, additional assessments, if you have to sit GAMSAT or UCAT or something, will also have their own separate application deadlines for when those applications for sittings need to be submitted. Put together your application and associated documentation well ahead of time. The University of Sydney recommends that it could take students 12 months to gather and submit their documentation paperwork. So don't underestimate the level of detail that needs to go into actually collating that information. Understand the broader selection process timeframe. Often universities have multiple stages in their assessments, and those stages may include the invitation to attend, for example, an interview. Understand the process timeframe around that, and make sure that if you are invited to attend further assessments, interviews, that you're available to do so. And finally, Verify your contact information works. Make sure your email works, that you're monitoring your email, not only through the information phase and the application phase, but also if you're successful in receiving an offer, that you're able to quickly accept it. And that also relates to matters such as accommodation offers. Again, those types of offers have very short timeframes and windows of response. So that quickly takes you through the 2-page medical school application guide. As you can see here, there's also some checkboxes that have been included so that you can walk through these 10 steps and make sure that you've given those things adequate consideration. If you're interested in accessing this information, you can head into this section of Study Medicine, and you can see here that this information can also be downloaded. So I hope that's been helpful in taking you through the 10-step medical school application guide. It of course raises questions about where you might get further information about some of these particular things raised in the application guide. In Study Medicine, there are free resources provided relating to deadline information, and there's also more detailed deadline information as a deadline listing available via Study Medicine on a subscription basis. If you're interested in finding out more information about the degree application processes and the specific requirements of each degree for each university, you can head into the University Details section of Study Medicine and find further information. So I trust that's been helpful. As always, I wish you a successful journey along your path to becoming a doctor.